Men don't always come out and say it, but they're constantly watching, quietly noticing, silently taking mental notes. And one of the biggest things they test for, whether they even realize it themselves or not, is emotional stability. I'm not talking about perfection, because nobody's perfect. I'm not talking about never getting upset, never feeling hurt, never crying, never losing your patience. That's not realistic. What I mean is this: men want to know if the woman beside them is going to bring peace into their life or chaos. Will she calm the storm, or will she be the storm? That's the secret test. It's not something that's written down, not something he'll tell you outright, but it's there. When he's late, when plans fall apart, when he says the wrong thing at the wrong time, he's paying attention to how you respond. Do you explode? Do you throw daggers with your words? Do you turn small disagreements into massive battles? Or do you breathe, reset, and choose a response that shows control? Because men know life is already full of challenges. The world beats them down, responsibilities weigh heavy, stress is part of the deal. What they don't want is to come home to another war zone. Now, here's the truth: most women fail this test not because they're bad people, not because they don't care, but because they don't realize it's even happening. They think every moment is just about that moment, when in reality, he's reading the pattern. He's asking himself, is this who she is when she doesn't get her way? Is this who she is when life throws a curveball? Is this who she is when pressure hits? And ladies, let me be clear, men do the same thing for women. Women test men too. You want to know if he's steady, if he can be trusted, if he's consistent. But here's the difference for a man: emotional stability in a woman isn't just attractive, it's essential. It makes the difference between seeing her as someone fun for now or someone he can build with forever. Think about it this way: imagine a man has had the roughest day. His boss chewed him out, bills are piling up, nothing went right. He walks in the door, and in that moment, he doesn't need someone who adds more fire to his frustration. He needs someone who can be his calm in the storm, someone who reminds him that he's safe. That home is peace. That doesn't mean you never voice your feelings. That doesn't mean you never stand up for yourself. It means you choose your battles wisely. It means you express what you need without turning it into destruction. Because here's the thing: when a man sees a woman who can control her emotions, he doesn't think she's weak. He thinks she's powerful. He thinks, wow, she has the strength to handle herself when life gets messy. That's rare. That's magnetic. That's unforgettable. And when he sees the opposite, constant drama, constant explosions, constant instability, he doesn't just pull back emotionally. He starts planning his exit, even if he doesn't say it out loud. Men test this in subtle ways. They might make a mistake and see how you respond. They might delay plans and notice your reaction. They might disagree with you just to feel the weight of your response. And what most women don't realize is that their reaction is telling him more than their words ever could. So if you want to pass this test, and it's not about playing games, it's about becoming your best, you have to ask yourself, do I let my emotions control me, or do I control my emotions? Because the woman who has that self-mastery, the woman who can stand in the middle of chaos and still choose peace, that's the woman a man sees as irreplaceable. That's the woman he feels safe with. That's the woman he wants by his side when life gets tough. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about channeling it. It's about communicating without cutting. It's about being honest without being destructive. And when you can do that, you don't just pass his secret test. You elevate yourself. You show him, and more importantly yourself, that you're built for something deeper, stronger, and lasting. At the end of the day, men aren't looking for perfect women. They're looking for women who can handle life with grace. The real question is, when the storm comes, and it always does, will you be the calm or will you be the chaos? One of the most powerful things men test, without ever saying it out loud, is boundaries. A man wants to know, deep down, how much a woman values herself. And the way he discovers that is by quietly testing her limits. Not because he's cruel, not because he wants to play games, but because it tells him the truth about her self-respect. Men will stretch situations, they'll push a little here and there, not always consciously, but almost instinctively. They want to see. Does she stand firm, or does she bend so far she loses herself? And this is where so many women get caught off guard. They confuse being kind with being a pushover. They confuse being flexible with having no backbone. They confuse pleasing him with erasing themselves. And let me tell you, when a man sees a woman give up her boundaries just to keep him, he doesn't feel respect. He feels the opposite. He may take advantage of it for a while. He may even enjoy the control. But in the back of his mind, he's thinking, if she doesn't even respect herself, how can I respect her? A woman with boundaries is magnetic. She doesn't need to scream about them. She doesn't need to make a scene. It's in the way she calmly says no when something doesn't feel right. It's in the way she doesn't let a man's inconsistency slide without accountability. It's in the way she won't lower her standards for someone who can't rise up to meet them. That's the kind of woman who makes a man pay attention. That's the kind of woman who passes this unspoken test. Now here's what usually happens. A man might cancel plans at the last minute just to see how she reacts. Does she shrug it off every single time, letting him know her time isn't valuable? Or does she respectfully make it clear that consistency matters? A man might push for more intimacy before trust is built, not always with bad intentions, but as a way of testing boundaries. Does she say yes just to keep him, or does she stand by her values? He might even tease, criticize, or pressure in small ways, and what he's really looking for isn't whether she argues back. It's whether she knows her worth enough to say, that doesn't work for me. See, men don't stay with women they don't respect. They may use them, they may linger for convenience, but they don't commit, they don't invest, they don't fight for that kind of relationship. Respect is the foundation. And respect is born when a woman respects herself first. And I'll tell you something, boundaries don't push good men away, they push the wrong men away. A man with real intentions won't run because you hold your standards. He'll rise to meet them. The only ones who disappear when you draw a line are the ones who never intended to honor you in the first place. And isn't that a gift? Isn't it better to know sooner rather than later that someone doesn't belong in your life, instead of wasting years giving pieces of yourself away to someone who never deserved them? Men test boundaries because they're trying to answer one simple question: is this woman going to let me walk over her, or is she going to stand strong? And when he sees strength, when he sees a woman who loves herself enough to enforce those limits, something shifts inside of him. He doesn't see her as replaceable. He sees her as rare. He sees her as someone he has to step up for. But when she folds, when she ignores the disrespect, when she allows him to take more than he gives, he doesn't think she's loving. He thinks she's desperate. And desperation never inspires commitment. It only inspires temporary use. So if you want to pass this test, and again, it's not about playing games, it's about living with self-worth. You have to understand this: your boundaries are not a wall to keep love out. They are a filter to keep the wrong kind of love from getting in. The man who's meant for you will never be offended by your standards. He'll be challenged by them, he'll be sharpened by them, and he'll thank you for them in the long run. The secret is simple: men respect what they can't easily take, and they value what they have to work for. So, if you ever wonder whether to lower your standards just to hold on to him, remember this: every time you trade your boundaries for his approval, you're teaching him that your love is cheap. But when you honor your worth, you send a message no man can ignore. If you want me, you have to rise to meet me. And the right man will. One of the quietest but most powerful tests men give women is for authenticity. They want to know if the woman in front of them is real or if she's just putting on a show. And the truth is, a lot of women don't even realize when they're failing this test because it doesn't happen in one moment. It happens over time, in the little cracks where the mask slips. At first, everything feels perfect. The laughter is easy, the energy is exciting, the attraction is strong, and in those early stages, it's natural to want to impress. It's natural to want to put your best foot forward. Everyone does it. But here's the thing, men are paying attention to whether that best foot forward is really you, or if it's just a performance. He notices when you say you love certain things just because he loves them. He notices when you hide parts of yourself out of fear he won't approve. He notices when you create this image of the ideal woman instead of showing up as the real one. And for a while, it might work. He might enjoy the attention, he might enjoy the flattery, he might even think he's found someone who matches him perfectly. But eventually, life reveals the truth. Sooner or later, the long nights, the tough days, the disagreements, they all bring out who we really are. And when that happens, he's looking to see, is she consistent, or was she pretending? Was she honest about who she is, or was she just saying what she thought I wanted to hear? And here's the thing about men. They don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to be just like them. They don't need you to perform. They need you to be authentic, because when a man discovers that the woman he's with has been performing, he doesn't just feel disappointed. He feels betrayed. He feels like he's been building a connection with someone who never really existed. And that's why so many relationships fall apart, not because of one big fight, not because of one dramatic ending, but because the foundation was built on pretending instead of truth. Authenticity is magnetic. When a woman is real, when she can laugh without worrying if she looks too silly, when she can admit she's having a bad day instead of faking a smile, when she can share her dreams even if they're messy, when she can say, "This is me, take it or leave it." That's when a man feels like he's looking at someone unforgettable, because he knows the world is full of people who put on masks, full of people who play roles, full of people who act. But to find someone genuine, someone who doesn't hide who they are to earn approval, that's rare. That's precious. That's what makes him lean in closer instead of pulling away. Men will test this in subtle ways too. They'll tell you something vulnerable and watch how you respond. Do you meet vulnerability with your own, or do you keep pretending? They'll share their flaws and see if you suddenly change your tune. They'll show you a side of them that isn't polished, and they'll notice if you can handle it, or if your reaction exposes that you were only interested in the polished version. And while they're doing that, they're also watching you. They're watching if you're consistent with friends, with family, with strangers. Are you kind only when you're being watched? Are you confident only when the spotlight is on you? Are you loving only when it benefits you? These are the questions a man is answering in his mind, silently, as he studies you. And what's wild is that most women don't fail this test because they're bad people. They fail because they don't believe the real version of them is enough. They think they have to perform to keep his attention. They think they have to mold themselves to fit his desires. But the irony is, the more you pretend, the faster you lose him. Because deep down, every man knows that trust and respect are born from truth, not illusion. The woman who passes this test doesn't have to be flawless. She doesn't have to know all the right answers. She doesn't have to shift into who she thinks he wants. She just has to be her. Her real laugh, her real flaws, her real standards, her real dreams. That's what makes her unforgettable. That's what makes a man think, I don't just like who she is with me. I like who she is, period. At the end of the day, pretending might win attention, but authenticity wins devotion. A man can be intrigued by a performance, but he can only build a life with someone real. And when you show up fully as yourself, when you're brave enough to let the mask go, you don't just pass his test. You prove to yourself that you were always more than enough without pretending. If there's one thing men test in ways most women don't even notice, it's loyalty. And not the kind that just means staying faithful in the obvious sense. Loyalty runs much deeper than that. It's not only about who you're with when times are good, it's about how you carry someone's name when they're not standing right next to you. It's about whether you protect the bond even in the smallest, quietest moments. That's what men are paying attention to. That's the test. See, loyalty isn't tested when everything is easy. Anyone can be loyal when life is smooth, when money is flowing, when attention is plenty, when every date feels exciting. But men know life doesn't stay on the mountaintop. It dips into valleys, it throws punches, it gets messy. So the real question is, when that happens, is she going to stand by me, or is she going to look for the first exit? That's what a man is trying to figure out long before the tough moments come. And here's the surprising part. It's not always tested in big dramatic ways. It's tested in the little details. It's tested when his name comes up in a conversation and he's not there to defend himself. Does she speak with respect, or does she use that moment to complain, to criticize, to tear him down? It's tested when his dreams sound too big or too crazy. Does she laugh at him, dismiss him, call him unrealistic? Or does she say, I believe in you, and I'll walk with you while you figure it out? It's tested when he falls short, when he's not the strongest version of himself. Does she shame him for it, or does she remind him that she sees the man he's becoming? Most women don't realize these small moments are shaping a man's decision about her. They think loyalty is about not cheating. But men are paying attention to something more subtle. They're asking, can I trust her to have my back when I'm not around? Can I trust her with my flaws? Can I trust her with my future? And when the answer is yes, it changes everything. But here's where many women fail this test. They let outside voices get in the way. They talk too freely about the relationship with people who don't deserve that access. They let frustration turn into public criticism. They make jokes at his expense, thinking it's harmless, but every time they do, a little piece of respect gets chipped away. And when that happens enough times, a man pulls back. He starts to think, if she can't cover me in the little things, how can I trust her with the big things? Now don't misunderstand me. Loyalty doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean you ignore problems. It doesn't mean you don't hold him accountable. It means you deal with those issues in a way that builds instead of destroys. It means you handle disagreements with privacy and respect instead of putting his flaws on display. It means when you're tempted to let anger dictate your words, you remember that words have power. They can either build a man up or break him down. And men never forget the women who build them up. They remember the one who stayed steady when the noise got loud. They remember the one who defended them in rooms they weren't even in. They remember the one who saw not only who they were but who they could be and spoke life into that potential. That's loyalty, and that's rare. When a man feels that kind of loyalty, he's not just grateful, he's devoted. Because loyalty creates safety. It tells him, no matter what the world throws at me, I know she won't turn against me. That safety is priceless. That safety makes him want to give back even more, to rise higher, to fight harder for the relationship. Because loyalty inspires loyalty. Respect inspires respect. It's a cycle that keeps growing stronger the more it's protected. So the test isn't just about where your body is. It's about where your words, your actions, and your heart are when no one is looking. That's where loyalty shows itself, and men notice. They always notice. At the end of the day, the woman who passes this test doesn't just win his trust. She wins his respect, his admiration, and his lifelong commitment. Because loyalty isn't something you claim, it's something you prove in the smallest moments. And once a man knows your loyalty is real, he'll never look at you the same again. Another test men quietly give, and it's one that often decides everything, is patience. Patience not just in the little day-to-day moments, but patience with who he is, who he's becoming, and the flaws he still hasn't figured out how to fix. Men know they're not perfect. They know they have rough edges, insecurities, habits they're trying to break, dreams they haven't yet figured out how to reach. And deep down, they're asking themselves, when she sees the less than perfect version of me, what will she do? That's the test. See, in the early days of a relationship, it's easy to focus only on the best parts. The charm, the excitement, the effort. It's all there. But over time, real life shows up. Stress creeps in. Mistakes get made. He forgets things. He gets it wrong. He says the wrong words. He struggles with things he may not even know how to explain. And when those moments show up, he's watching how she reacts. Does she cut him down, criticize him, make him feel like he's failing? Or does she show him that she sees the man underneath the flaws and is willing to walk with him while he grows? Patience isn't about ignoring problems. It's not about letting him stay stuck or excusing bad behavior. It's about giving him the space to be human while encouraging him to become better. It's about saying, I see where you are, but I also see where you can go, and I'm willing to believe in that journey. That belief is powerful. That patience is what makes a man feel safe enough to keep trying even when he falls short. But here's the trap many women fall into. They expect perfection, and when it doesn't come, they let frustration take over. They point out every flaw, they magnify every mistake, they compare him to other men. And while they think they're motivating him to do better, what they're really doing is tearing down his spirit. Because men don't grow in an environment of constant criticism. They grow in an environment where they feel supported while being challenged to rise higher. Think about it like this: if a man is trying to build something, whether it's his career, his character, or his confidence, he doesn't need someone standing over his shoulder pointing out every mistake. He needs someone who can stand beside him, hand on his back, saying, I know it's not perfect yet, but I see what you're building, and I'm here while you figure it out. That patience is fuel. That patience makes him want to rise up and become better, not because he has to, but because he wants to. And men test this without even realizing it. They'll watch how you respond when they're struggling with something small, like taking longer than expected to figure out a plan, or not knowing the answer to something right away. They'll notice if you roll your eyes, if you lose patience, if you dismiss them. Because those little reactions tell him how you'll treat him when the bigger struggles come. And the truth is, life will always bring bigger struggles. So he wants to know when those moments hit, will you be a partner in patience or a partner in pressure? What makes patience powerful is that it communicates belief. And belief is one of the most attractive qualities a woman can give a man. When a man feels believed in, he feels unstoppable. When he feels doubted, he feels defeated before he even starts. So this isn't just about being kind in the moment. It's about shaping how he sees himself. And when he looks in the mirror and remembers the woman who believed in him when he was still rough around the edges, that memory becomes part of his motivation. The woman who passes this test doesn't lose herself by waiting around for a man who refuses to grow. She has her own standards, her own boundaries. But she also understands that growth takes time and that no man shows up fully complete. She balances grace with truth. She knows when to hold him accountable, but she delivers it in a way that builds instead of breaks. And that balance is rare. That balance is unforgettable, because at the end of the day, men don't just want someone who loves their strengths. They want someone who can also see their weaknesses and still choose to stand beside them while they become stronger. That's the kind of patience that makes a man realize he doesn't just have a partner. He has a teammate, an ally, a safe place. And once he sees that, he'll spend the rest of his life making sure he never loses it. So the question isn't whether he'll test your patience. He will. The real question is, when he does, will you become another voice of criticism in his life, or will you be the voice that reminds him he's worth the effort of becoming better? At the deepest level, the final test men give isn't about how you look, how much fun you are, or even how loyal you seem. It's about love. But not just any kind of love. The question men are really testing is whether that love is conditional or genuine. because every man knows, consciously or unconsciously, that life shifts. The shine doesn't last forever. Looks change, money comes and goes, status can fade, success can rise and fall. So he's asking himself, if all of that disappeared tomorrow, would she still love me for me? Or was she only here for what I could give her? That question shapes how he sees you more than you realize. Because men know that conditional love is everywhere. It's easy to find someone who loves you when you're strong, confident, successful, when you're giving your best. But what about when you're broken? What about when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're not at your best? That's where the truth of love shows up. That's where the test really matters. Men test this in small ways. He might pull back some attention to see if you panic, if you cling, if you get resentful. He might go through a season where his career isn't shining just to see if your tone shifts. He might not even do it on purpose, but life will test it for him. And in those moments, he's noticing, does she love me because of what I provide, or does she love me because of who I am? Most women don't realize how loud their actions answer that question. When his success slows, do you shame him or do you support him? When he can't give as much, do you resent him or remind him he's still enough? When he isn't the center of attention, do you stay present or start looking for someone sheenier? Those are the moments where your love speaks louder than words. And here's the truth. Men don't need a woman who overlooks everything or settles for mediocrity. They need a woman who can hold both grace and standards. Who can say, I love you as you are, but I also believe in who you can become. That kind of love is rare. That kind of love is what makes a man rise, because conditional love makes him hide. Genuine love makes him grow. Think about it. If every time he stumbled, your love withdrew, he'd learn to keep parts of himself from you. He'd learn to wear a mask to show you only the polished side, and that distance would grow until you didn't really know him at all. But if every time he stumbled, your love reminded him he was still seen, still worthy, still wanted, he'd trust you with his whole heart. He'd open doors inside himself he never opened to anyone else. That's the power of unconditional love, and men remember it forever. They remember the woman who didn't flinch when the shine faded. They remember the one who didn't make them feel like they had to perform for affection. They remember the one who loved them when they were low, not just when they were high. And because of that, they'll fight to keep that kind of love. They'll honor it. They'll protect it. But the flip side is just as true. When a man feels that a woman only loves him when he's winning, when he's giving, when he's at his best, he learns quickly that the love isn't really for him. It's for the version of him that benefits her. And that realization makes him retreat. It makes him test even harder, searching to see if there's any depth behind the affection. And when he finds there isn't, he may stay for a while, but he's already halfway out the door in his heart. What most women don't realize is that the love men want isn't complicated. It's not about grand gestures or endless sacrifices. It's about consistency. It's about knowing that even when the seasons change, the heart beside them doesn't. It's about being with someone who says, I didn't fall in love with your money, your status, or your image. I fell in love with you, and that's who I'm still here for. At the end of the day, that's the test. That's the one men care about most. Because conditional love may sparkle for a while, but it never lasts. Genuine love, the kind that sees the man beneath the titles, beneath the flaws, beneath the success, that's the love that anchors a man. That's the love he spends his life searching for. And when he finds it, when he knows it's real, he'll never look at you the same way again.